It is often said that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But what if germs in the body takes that advice literally? Then what doesn't kill the germs only makes them more dangerous. Have you ever experienced a situation where the prescribed medication doesn't seem to work and you start wondering what's going on? It is a common complaint from patients, and here is the truth. It is not always the medication's fault. Your body may have developed resistance to either bacteria or fungi. Unfortunately, this growing concern is called antimicrobial resistance, or AMR. It makes infections harder to treat and renders medications seemingly ineffective. Now that I have given you a glimpse of our focus on health options, let's dive deeper. You may want to know, how does the body develop this resistance? Are we truly helpless in the face of this challenge? We shall get to find out in the course of the program, plus Nature's Corner, where we share natural tips and ideas for wellness. I am Salwa Khalil Ibrahim, and the pleasure is mine having you join us. In these days of fake and substandard drugs, it doesn't matter how the medication is obtained, be it over the counter or prescription by a qualified doctor. One thing is clear: we are increasingly unsure of what works for us. This may not be far from misuse, abuse, or overuse of a particular medication. But let's start our conversation with a bigger question: how did we even get here? Sit tight as I welcome our guests to help unpack AMR and explain what it does to our bodies and our health. Let's welcome our guest, a consultant clinical pharmacist at the National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development, NIPRD, pharmacist Isa Hayatu Galadima. Thank you for joining me on the program.
Thank you very much for having me here. It is a pleasure to me.
Now, let's start with the basics. Why are we seeing so many cases of antimicrobial resistance? Are we in a crisis?
Well, really we are in a crisis. For instance, in 2020, when there was COVID-19 pandemic that killed 1.9 million people. That was catastrophic. However, a year before that, people didn't notice that there was another pandemic, which is AMR, antimicrobial resistant. In 2019, more than 1.3 million people died due to antimicrobial resistance. Antimicrobial resistance is a serious threat to global health and global economy. It has shown that more than 1 million people on average died annually, and scientific findings has revealed that by 2050, more than 10 million people may die due to antimicrobial resistance. Antimicrobial resistance is a phenomenon whereby microorganisms such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites that are normally sensitive to conventional treatment will become insensitive to the treatment. And this is because they have ability of developing some mechanisms through which they will evade the effects of the drug. And this poses a serious threat to clinical treatment. This is because the cost of treatment will be more, and patients will stay longer in hospital. Ideally, a treatment that's supposed to cost patient maybe 50,000, it may end up costing hundreds of thousands. And even the duration of patients staying in the hospital will be prolonged. It is a serious threat to humanity. And in addition to that, there are other factors that plays a key role in that. Sometimes when a drug is being prescribed, patient may not complete the course of the treatment.
Yeah.
Because every drug treatment is a product of research. It is expected that when you are asked to take drugs 3 times in a day for 5 days, so every time there is a particular plasma concentration, that's the concentration of the drug in our blood and other body fluid that needs to be maintained for those microorganisms to be eliminated or to be killed. So when we are not taking the drugs appropriately, maybe for instance, a patient is supposed to take his drug by 2 p.m. He now extended by 1 hour. So after that 1 hour, the concentration of the drug will fall below the optimal therapeutic concentration. And that will give the microorganism ability to regain their strength. So at the end, even if the patient complete the duration, the drug may not kill them completely. So a lot of patients believe that they are okay at that time and they will abandon the drug. So when they regain their strength, they already know where the drug hit them. So there is what we call mutation, which is a genetic alteration of the binding site to which the drug or target site. Every drug has what we call target site. So as the drug hit them, but they survived it. So they will change their genetic component to the extent that the drug will no longer work again.
Okay. AMR doesn't just affect humans, does it? I have heard it's an issue also in livestock and agriculture. Could it be linked to the food we eat or even our lifestyle?
Absolutely. In fact, AIM is a threat to both human and animal. But humans are the major victims. One of the major causes is the way we use drugs in livestock, in poultry, in fish farming, and what have you. The way we use drugs in agriculture contribute to antimicrobial resistance. And these antibiotics are not different from what humans use. So when these animals develop resistance to these microorganisms, as we consume them, that particular resistant gene will be transmitted to humans as we consume the animals or even their product like milk or even egg as in poultry or fish. One thing with this livestock resistance, in fact, some researches have shown that it has poses even more threat than even the microbial resistance seen in real time in humans. Countries like ours, there is no regulatory framework to regulate the animals for consumption. In some countries, when animals are being consumed, there is a regulatory body to ascertain that those animals are fit for consumption. And a blood sample or some sample will be collected from the animal to be sure that their system is free of antibiotic. There is what we call washout period. This is a period you will give for the antibiotic to be excreted in animal before
they are being consumed.
Before they are being consumed. But in Nigeria, somebody will even administer antimicrobial to animals today. Later, you'll see same animal in the markets, which is catastrophic.
Unfortunately.
At the end, we end up consuming the animal same day containing that particular drugs.
Okay, let's now come back to the human side again. We see people returning to the doctors repeatedly for new prescription. Does AMR undermine the healthcare system in this way?
Yeah, it really undermines the healthcare system. One, it overburdens the healthcare system in the sense that the medical personnel that's supposed to focus more on other health-related issue, they will be focusing on patient due to drug resistance. One key thing I want to draw our attention is that related to AMR is that some medical procedures like surgery, like kidney transplants, like transfusions, and what have you, cannot be done without antimicrobials. Antimicrobials play a key role. It can be used for prevention or for treatment. So most of these medical procedures I mentioned will definitely require antimicrobials like antibiotic and what have you. So if there is resistance to those microorganisms, definitely there will be prolonged in hospital stay for the patient, and even the burden on the medical personnel and even the patient relatives.
Okay, thank you, Pharmacist Galadima. Let's pause here for a break. Please join us again.
Thank you.
Some say learning is fun, but as a mom, I see how demanding it can be for my child. That's why I ensure he starts every day with a cup of Bonvita. Bonvita, prepare them to win every day.
The program is Health Options on the NTA, and our focus is on the implications of antimicrobial resistance, AMR. Many thanks for being there, Pharmacist Galadima. Now, how do we effectively combat AMR?
Well, AMR is a serious global problem. And based on that, not just global, it's a complex global problem that affects the entire world. And to combat this menace, there must be multi-sectoral approach, meaning that a lot of people have to come to play. People like veterinarians, people like farmers, healthcare practitioners, government agency, regulatory body, and even researchers. All these caretakers have to come together to combat antimicrobial resistance. For instance, there are major, let me just mention this, there are major factors that cause this AMR. There is what we call patient-related factor, there is physician or prescriber-related factor, there is environmental factor, and there is researchers factor. So to combat this, government have to come in by putting in place some regulatory framework to make sure that we avoid overcrowding. Scientific research has shown that more than 60% of diseases are transmitted through our hands. So if you can observe hand hygiene by routine washing of our hand, avoid contact, avoid overcrowding, definitely we can reduce the chances of diseases, not to talk of even looking for antibiotic that can result in antimicrobial resistance. Sometimes we go to hospitals, patient will request for antibiotic even when it is not needed. A lot of times somebody will be having flu or maybe cough or sore throat, will go and request for physician or pharmacist to.
Is Nigeria making enough investment to combat AMR, since you said it's a global problem now? And here in Nigeria, how are we doing?
Really, there is not much effort to combat AMR in Nigeria. But I believe maybe with time, government will find it worth to maybe play a role in it. But we know that a lot of patients died in hospital on daily basis due to this menace. A lot of time you'll see the best antibiotic you can think of, patient will be placed on, and at the end there is not much improvement. That means that the patients have developed antimicrobial resistance. It's a serious threat. So really government need to do much on it. There is need for advocacy. and other things by government.
Certainly.
A lot of regulatory framework need to be put in place to curtail this menace.
Certainly. Now, Nigeria was given the hosting right for the World AMR Convention, later this year. What does this mean for the country?
Well, it's an opportunity if we can explore. At least it will give us an idea to take this menace more serious. And it will definitely help to improve on the lifespan of our citizens. Because economically, AMR has serious issue even on the national economy, as I have said earlier. A lot of drugs that are being used in the hospitals or in our healthcare centers are not supposed to be used. But because the conventional ones has been exhausted and there is no much improvement, we keep administering this antibiotic even when they are not needed. So government can take this as an advantage to mitigate or to curtail this menace.
Now, what is your advice to those who overuse or misuse antibiotics on a final note?
Well, my advice to those that misuse or overuse antibiotic is that, 1, never take antibiotic without any recommendation from healthcare practitioner, either on doctor's prescription or pharmacist. 2, on no account a patient should abandon his or her prescription, irrespective of how you feel. Whether you feel okay, you have to make sure that you complete the course of the treatment. Is very important, because without that, for you to feel okay doesn't mean that the microorganisms have been eliminated. No, it's only that the drugs have inflicted some injury on them, and as such, the symptoms you are feeling or the sign will definitely go down. So once you abandon the drugs, the microorganisms will develop resistance, and next time when we use the drugs, it will not work. Secondly, there is always need to go for laboratory tests. There is what we call microbial culture sensitivity tests. This is a test that will detect the presence of microorganisms and also identify which antimicrobial will treat that bacteria or that microorganism. So with that, you will avoid spending more money on different antibiotics, and it will save your time, and there is no much pains, because as the test release, the result will be based on the antibiotic you need, and once you take it, by God's grace, you will be okay.
Okay, pharmacist Isa Hayatu Galadima, thank you for sharing your insight on this critical issue with us. We look forward to having you again on the program.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Now, are you a fan of natural herbs and roots remedies? Stick around, because we have got something truly inspiring coming up next on Nature's Corner.
Today we are discussing something very personal and something that really bothers many women. That is the issue of what they call toilet infection, which is very, very common, particularly in secondary schools, among young women. And the symptom of this toilet infection actually is discharge, itching, rashes. And what I want to first mention is that there are many categories of infection, you see? And for you to be able to know which one is which, you must go under investigation in the hospital so that you'll be able to know which category of infection you have. But the purpose of our discussion today is simply to give advice on what that infection is and how we can prevent it, and if you have an infection, how you can relieve the symptoms of that infection naturally. One thing about infection is that it has a lot of connection with hygiene. Hygiene is a very, very important component of the infection. Personal hygiene and environmental hygiene. What I mean by environmental is something to do with the toilet and the avenue of where a person stays and where a person utilizes as toilet. Usually, people that use public toilets are prone to what we call toilet infections, because all kinds of people have utilized that toilet. You don't know who and who it is. The toilet may look clean, but it may not be clean in terms of microorganisms that are infected in that toilet. The squatting toilets are safer in terms of contact and infection than the toilets that we have, where the first person sits, the second person sits, the third person, everybody come and sit on the same toilet. So it means that this is part of the things that one has to look out. Secondly, actually, is as I said, the toilet, that the nature of the materials that you use in cleaning yourself. Many people don't have proper etiquettes of cleaning after going to toilet. Anybody with a toilet infection needs a lot of aeration, a lot of air circulation, because moisture encourages bacterial growth in any place. So it means that if you have toilet infection, you must make sure that your under areas are always dry. That can really help in the fighting of that particular infection. Make sure all the time your under areas is clean. At the same time, your underwears should always be not only washed and thoroughly dried in sun, because if there is moisture inside, that is also a problem. You should thoroughly dry it, and if possible, soak them either in salt water or in Dettol water after you wash them. The underwears that you use for your menstruation, you don't need to be keeping it along with your other underwears. What I mean is that try as much as possible to have your under areas that you are using for menstruation to be separately from the ones that you use normally. This will also go in a long way in giving you good health and good protection in terms of toilet infections. And in our day-to-day use, especially the married women, if a person has toilet infection, the other partner also needs to be treated. So these are part of the protocols and part of the advice that I can give. I am insisting that a person must go to the hospital for you to know the definite type of infection that you have. Because as I said, there are so many. We all know the sit bath. The sit bath using salt water is very, very much relieving to anybody who have these symptoms that I have mentioned, the rashes, the itching. But it doesn't have to be hot water, just lukewarm water, sitting. And it's very useful, particularly for children, because children used to have these infections and they cannot even pass urine. Very, very painful. But this sit bath do help them in terms of relieving the symptoms of the pain and the itching. So sit bath is something that is commonly known to have this. Another one is the use of oils that are garlic oil. Garlic also the oil of garlic relieve the external symptoms of the infection, that is the rashes and the itching, and it can be applied on the affected areas. Yes, particularly if a person has warts, or garlic oil can be used in the application of the external symptoms of the infection.
It's amazing how time flies when you are having a good time, right? But not to worry, Health Options is always on the line. If you missed any part of this episode or any previous ones, you can catch up on YouTube at NTA Networks, where you can also leave your comment, questions, and suggestions. Here is a quick reminder before I sign out. Be mindful of how you take your antibiotics or any other medications. A little responsibility today can save you from countless health bugs tomorrow. I am Salwa Khalil Ibrahim, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.